Niger has a great deal of potential for the future, even though it is a country that is frequently disregarded. Niger is currently at a turning point under the leadership of President Abdourahamane Tchiani. Can the nation achieve greatness through the policies and vision of the president? This is a question many people around the world are beginning to ask, with all that is happening in the country. While the recent political developments have raised concerns about Niger's stability and governance, they have not derailed the country's economic progress. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the recent memorandum that was signed by Niger. We will also talk more about China's plan to establish a new military base in Africa. But before we begin, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the new tourist channel to get more updates on what is going on in Niger and Africa as a whole. China has made a significant impact on Africa with its prestige project diplomacy strategy since the building of the African Union headquarters in 2012. These impressive constructions present China as a modernizing and forward-thinking nation by acting as symbolic displays of its potential. These initiatives are essential to China's efforts to gain international recognition, since they are potent instruments for swaying opinions and promoting a favorable image. In a recent turn of events, a $400 million memorandum of understanding was signed by Niger and China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, a Chinese state-owned oil giant, for the transfer of crude oil from the African country's Agadim oil field. CNPC has had a presence in Niger since 2011 when it formed a joint venture with the government to produce oil from the Agadim site. Chinese ambassador Zhang Feng said the signing of this memorandum demonstrates the friendship and fruitful cooperation between the two states. Last November, the China National Petroleum Corporation put into service an export pipeline project that links the Agadim oil field to the port of Cotonou in neighboring Benin. It was stated that 15% of the pipeline will belong to Niger. Before the pipeline was launched, the West African country only possessed a small Suez oil refinery close to Zinder, which produced roughly 20,000 barrels of oil per day, largely for the Niger domestic fuel market. Production is predicted to rise to 110,000 barrels per day with the pipeline's launch. Note that China is Niger's second largest investor after France. There were signs before that China was increasingly concerned by the political chaos in Niger, and Beijing even advised its citizens to leave Niger. But it now seems everything is fine with the signing of this memorandum. China has made large investments in Niger, especially in the fields of uranium and oil exploration. The two nations' memorandum of understanding forges a strategic alliance and demonstrates China's ongoing commitment to investing in Niger despite the country's political unrest. Chinese investment in Niger has primarily gone toward developing the country's infrastructure, which includes building sizable oil refineries and exploring its oil resources. These investments have the potential to improve the country's infrastructure and contribute to its economic growth. This memorandum with China allows Niger to therefore diversify its partnerships and reduce its dependence on a single country or region. It will provide Niger with more options for economic cooperation and development. Similar to Russia, China presents itself as a rival to the Sahelien nation's oldest ally, France. Its themes of non-interference and respecting sovereignty have helped it solidify its position as a partner to Sahelien nations. Natural resources including oil, uranium, natural gas, and lithium are abundant in the Sahel region, so why would China not be interested? As all this is going on, there is a growing concern that China may be planning to establish a second military base in Africa. Africa has been the destination of the first international trip taken by Chinese foreign ministers, each year for more than 30 years. Wang Yi, China's foreign minister, has already visited Egypt, Tunisia, Togo, and Ivory Coast this year, carrying on the custom. Interestingly, every one of these countries is coastal. And yet, at a time of continued speculation over China's next military installation in Africa, none of these countries has featured prominently as potential locations in previous analyses. China has one base in Africa, which opened in the Horn of Africa in 2017 in Djibouti. The overt goals of this installation are anti-piracy and freedom of navigation, part of a strategy aimed at securing trade corridors, alongside developing alternatives such as the longer but less contested Mozambique-South Africa route. Over time, this base has developed from a resupply facility to a logistics facility supported by up to 2 brigades of the People's Liberation Army. Bear in mind that China had to defend about 35,000 individuals during the 2011 Libyan conflict with relatively few resources on the ground. This failure supposedly supported the establishment of an African base. However, Djibouti is unique in that it has a large number of foreign bases and is strategically valuable geographically to numerous international allies. The only other bases on the continent are in that location, those of Saudi Arabia and Japan. China's Djibouti facility provides us with very limited insight into the country's strategic thinking when it comes to growing its military presence in the area. If China is looking forward to creating another military base in Africa, it wants to avoid being taken by surprise, as it did in 2011 when thousands of its citizens became stuck in Libya, or when its commercial interests were jeopardized in South Sudan. However, just because China wishes to have an increased footprint in the region does not necessarily translate into reality. African countries have good reason not to be seen as picking sides and may well have rebuffed or forestalled Chinese proposals. It is more likely that China will look to develop dual-use facilities at African ports it has invested in, rather than opening another military base. Under the dual-use base model, China downplays the military relevance of its strategic port investments by combining access to a limited number of military facilities with commercial ports. Wang's visit to Africa seems to have been more about demonstrating China's ongoing commitment to high-level relations on the continent than it was about forging a new base deal. Nonetheless, there's reason to think Wang will have had a chance to talk about China's security concerns during his time in Africa. This may have involved fishing and pirate operations off the coast of Togo and Ivory Coast, as well as shipping lines connecting Tunisia and Egypt to the Mediterranean and Suez Canal. A more thorough explanation of China's global security initiative may have also been discussed. In any case, China is currently dealing with a more assertive and multipolar Africa, which is pressuring other countries to define their security interests in terms of who and what they are protecting. To safeguard or further its interests, they will probably keep pressuring allies, but it will still be reliant on regional politics and the specific connections they entail. Bear in mind that the United States, on the other hand, was forced to stop its military operations in Niger last month. Representatives from the United States are presently attempting to reach an agreement to keep a military presence in Niger. That being said, Niger's military leaders have said that the American military's presence there violates the country's constitution. The fate of the U.S. presence, including 2 military drone bases, remains uncertain. Although the United States still has about 1,000 troops in Niger, it does not appear likely that it will continue to do so, or that the drone bases would be reactivated. In addition to the military leaders, thousands of Nigerians have taken part in widespread demonstrations demanding the withdrawal of American troops. To add to the complexity, Russian military personnel landed in Niger this month to provide training to Nigerian forces. They delivered military equipment and stated that they planned to build an air defense system in Niger. This deployment is a component of Niger's larger military cooperation with Russia. If U.S. forces are removed from Niger entirely, this may also provide opportunities for China to increase its influence there. With this recent memorandum of understanding, it is but normal that China will increase its influence in Niger. One way to comprehend the dynamics of China's projects is to look at the idea of gift-giving in interpersonal interactions. Given that gifts establish a mutually binding and irreversible relationship between the provider and the recipient, anthropological viewpoints emphasize that gifts are never totally free. Gift-giving and receiving create and strengthen social bonds in addition to being a utilitarian exchange. They are irreplaceable items that are inextricably linked to their giver. The gift's symbolic representation of forging relationships based on recognition is what gives it significance. Since giving makes one appear kind and respectable, it is strongly associated with the concepts of honor and prestige. Similar effects of gifts in international communities include elevating the status of the giver and solidifying the position of the recipient. Even if cooperation is emphasized, donating quietly highlights and reimagines material inequality while boosting China's standing, honor, and prestige internationally. Although a gift does not always result in debt, it often normalizes the material disparity that exists between the giver and the recipient. China's magnificent architectural contributions to Africa represent more than just construction projects. They are potent representations of gifts, collaboration, aspirations, and diplomatic involvement. The story that is ingrained in these structures helps to mold opinions, promote goodwill, and bolster China's position as a major actor on the African continent. There are others who also believe these gifts come with a price. However, do you think Niger will now work more with China or with Russia? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the New Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you in our next video.